Today's coaches, well, they have a long and storied history. Each one has walked a unique path that has often intersected with one another. And today we're highlighting some of the strange circumstances and happenstances that many of these coaches have found themselves in. The NFL is often referred to as a fraternity, and in many ways, that is true. So many of today's head coaches have ties to the game dating way back to their time on the field as players, and a number of them have had some fascinating intersections with some of their peers over the years too. So today we're going to take a look back at 10 of the most interesting full-circle stories surrounding current NFL head coaches. First up, we have one of the league's younger coaches who, after a very tough start to his NFL head coaching career, now appears to have a face that football fans should get used to seeing. Cincinnati Bengals head coach Zac Taylor. Like many in the coaching world, before Taylor ever put the headset on, he marched out onto the gridiron himself. Though Taylor struggled to find a foothold even in the college ranks, as he bounced from Wake Forest to Butler Community College before finding a home at Nebraska, he did end up putting together a nice run under center for the Cornhuskers. In fact, he led Nebraska to an appearance in the Big 12 championship game, and actually earned Big 12 Offensive Player of the Year honors for the season. The 6'2" signal caller unfortunately didn't find much interest from professional scouts and went undrafted in 2007. He did, however, get a shot with the Tampa Bay Bucks, and it was there that he found himself working with a handful of coaches that now hold coveted NFL jobs. Nathaniel Hackett, the current Broncos head coach, was on the Bucs staff at the time, as well as Gus Bradley and Raheem Morris, who are now the defensive coordinators for the Colts and Rams, respectively. I guess if you're gonna flame out of the league as a player, the best thing you can hope for is to do it in an organization where you can make valuable coaching connections to launch your second act. Pittsburgh Steelers head coach Mike Tomlin not only has a reputation for being one of the best head coaches in the game, but also through his playing days, he has ties to another extremely talented head coach, Sean McDermott. Tomlin and McDermott played college ball together at William and Mary. Though the school is typically recognized for its academics much more than its football, it happened to turn out two of the best coaches in the NFL today. While it may seem odd-defying for William and Mary to pop out two coaches of their caliber, if you ask anyone that was in and around the program when Jimmy Laycock was at the helm, they won't be shocked. Laycock was known to many for being a legend in the football world, and the impact that he had on his players across his 39 years of coaching, McDermott and Tomlin included, cannot be overstated. Laycock believed his job was to help players reach their potential, and the high standards he held them to now live on in the NFL world with the way that both McDermott and Tomlin run their respective organizations. McDermott and Tomlin were no strangers to one another on campus either. The duo often matched up on the practice field, as Tomlin was a wide receiver and McDermott a defensive back. Next up, we have two coaches whose interesting on-field experiences roll up to the GOAT, Tom Brady. Starting with Arizona Cardinals head coach Cliff Kingsbury, who, like Brady, was a 6th-round pick for New England. Kingsbury was taken with the 201st pick in the '03 draft out of Texas Tech, and subsequently spent 1 year in the Patriots quarterback's room with Brady. Well, I mean, at least technically speaking. Kingsbury actually did not play a single down of football during his rookie season, as he spent the entire year on the injured reserve list with an ailing arm. So while he may not have gotten a chance to soak up much from TB12, at least he was able to ride his coattails to a Super Bowl ring. Kevin O'Connell, now the head coach for the Minnesota Vikings, played quarterback in the college ranks for San Diego State, and Belichick & Co. must have seen something in him as well. The Pats took O'Connell in the 3rd round of the 2008 draft. He, like Kingsbury, did not last long in New England, but at least he got to touch the field though. He made his debut in the 4th quarter of a blowout win against the Miami Dolphins, completed 3 of his 4 passes, and called it a day. O'Connell has since chronicled his time in New England, and he felt that his time around Brady was an extremely valuable experience. Staying in the Brady universe, how about one of his more well-known teammates, who is now making his name for the team he's built down in Nashville? Mike Vrabel. Of course, Vrabes, as he's colloquially known, is best known for his role on those fearsome Patriots defenses, but his on-field connections actually expand well beyond his relationships with Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. He played for New England from 2001 to '08, meaning that he also crossed paths with O'Connell and Kingsbury during their stints with the Pats. But there was also a number of current coaches that spent time learning under Bill, guys like Brian Dable, Nick Caserio, Matt Patricia, and Shane Waldron. Not to mention another big-time Belichick disciple who is now the head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders and just so happens to be the next character on our list, Josh McDaniels. McDaniels played his college ball at John Carroll, where he would just so happen to lose out in a quarterback competition with none other than Nick Caserio. Caserio is not the only future NFL mind to cross paths with McDaniels at John Carroll either. Some of his teammates included Jerry Shaplinski, a current Raiders assistant, and Dave Ziegler, the current Raiders GM. Whoa, I wonder how McDaniels ended up in the silver and black. So basically, not only did McDaniels' experiences as a player help him learn the game well enough to qualify for one of the 32 most coveted jobs in the country, but it also provided him with the connections he needed to actually land one. It wasn't just future Raiders that Josh played with either. He also played with a former stud NFL linebacker in London Fletcher, as well as Tom Telesco, the current Los Angeles Chargers general manager. But moving on, we have another duo of NFL coaches who crossed paths during their playing days, not just with each other, but a bevy of other interesting NFL personalities. Doug Peterson and Frank Reich. Starting with the former, Doug Peterson is now the head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars, but he's perhaps best known for wearing the headset during the Philadelphia Eagles' epic Super Bowl run a few years back. He actually had a pretty long playing career as a backup quarterback. The now 54-year-old signed with the Dolphins in 1991 after going undrafted out of Northeast Louisiana. Peterson then bounced around a number of different rosters through the year 2000, when he finally hung up the spikes after a season with the Cleveland Browns. During that time, he had quite a few run-ins. Most notably, I'd say, was his relationship with the legendary Brett Favre. Peterson served as his backup. In fact, he actually had two separate stints with Green Bay. Though most people know Peterson for his widely appreciated efforts in preventing the Patriots from winning another ring, he actually also won a championship as a player too, albeit as a backup behind Favre, but he was a champion nonetheless. Peterson also crossed paths with another Super Bowl winning coach, Andy Reid, who was actually an assistant on the Green Bay staff during Peterson's first stint with the team. Now, if you're wondering where Frank Reich fits into all of this, well, don't worry, I'll tell you. They were actually founding members on the Carolina Panthers following the expansion draft, that is, until Carolina ended up cutting Peterson later that offseason. The signal caller actually has a couple of other unique crossovers with recognizable NFL names while he was in Carolina. Namely, his role in mentoring and really providing a runway for Kerry Collins while he was on his ascent. And admittedly, less directly, with Cam Newton, who he shares the franchise record for most sacks taken in a single game with 9. Reich, a former third-round pick out of Maryland, also, of course, had interesting experiences on other NFL rosters, primarily with the Buffalo Bills. After all, there is a reason that Bill Polian has called Frank Reich the greatest backup quarterback in NFL history. Say, for example, his performance during the epic wildcard comeback against the Houston Oilers, during which he led the Bills back from a 35-3 deficit all the way to a thrilling overtime victory. Moving away from many quarterbacks turned coaches to a couple of former players that have since taken jobs as head coaches in the league, despite not spending their playing careers under center. Dan Campbell and Todd Bowles. Bowles spent his playing days in the greater DC area, playing in the defensive secondary for the then Redskins. Many of today's younger fans may not know this, but during his prime, Bowles was actually a very solid cornerback. The undrafted corner parlayed his chance with Washington into an 8-year NFL career. Not too bad for a guy that didn't get an opportunity to come out of the draft. But perhaps more interestingly is the little-known connection that he had with Bruce Arians, long before Arians was teeing him up to take over as the head coach in Tampa Bay. Arians was actually the head coach at Virginia Tech while Todd was at Hokie, meaning that the recent coaching handoff actually goes all the way back to the mid-80s. Safe to say that Bowles must have made a hell of an impression on the oft-ornery coach. Let's just hope that he can make his mentor proud and put forth a little better showing as a head coach this time around. Because his time in New York with the Jets sure got ugly. But anyway, where were we? Oh right, the head coach of the Detroit Lions, former NFL tight end Dan Campbell. Campbell had quite a few of these interesting moments during his playing days. Some good, and some, well, not so great. Like his involvement with what is widely regarded as one of the single worst NFL teams to ever exist, the 2008 0-16 Detroit Lions. Campbell also played for the Giants and Cowboys when Sean Payton was the OC, during which he developed a relationship with Payton, which was very crucial in his final and perhaps most interesting experience, when he reunited with Payton for one last stint, this time with the New Orleans Saints. Unfortunately for the burly tight end, he suffered an MCL injury in camp that kept him out of action for the entire season. And despite the fact that his teammates defeated the Colts in the Super Bowl, the Saints execs opted not to give him a ring. Talk about a crazy series of highs and lows for Campbell to close out his NFL career. But which current NFL head coach do you think is the most interesting of them all? Which of them would you be most invested in having a beer with? Let us know in the comment section below. If you liked this video and learned a thing or two, clicking the like button helps out a ton, and hey, we appreciate it. If this is your first time coming around to TPS though, subscribing is a great idea, because we put out videos like this every single day. But as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.